MarkRogersTV and ProFootballCentral.com. Michigan State, Iowa. Spartans win it 26-14. That was a noon game on Saturday. We typically like to get our posts up right after the game, give you instant analysis so you can respond. This one, some other things got in the way. So again, we would like to touch upon Michigan State and Iowa, a game that went under the radar. Neither team was ranked coming into the game. Michigan State lost the game against Notre Dame. That kind of took them out of the mix in regards to at least being in the talk. It shouldn't, though. Michigan State certainly a viable contender in that division. Iowa got the opening win in the Big Ten against Minnesota 23-7. Of course, Iowa comes into this game 7th in total defense, most of that because of the opponents, although they did play Minnesota that was productive against some lesser opponents, and Northern Illinois, which defeated the Hawkeyes 23-20. The linebackers are exceptional for Iowa. What we saw in this game was exceptional linebacking play as advertised. Needed to get more pass pressure on Connor Cook. That proved to be decisive as he hit on some plays downfield for the first time for Michigan State this season. The secondary has some holes as well. But a 7th ranking in total defense coming into the game for Iowa. Michigan State drops continue to be a bit of a storyline, not as severe as it once was. They got some plays out of the passing game. Connor Cook showed us some serious arm strength, and I believe this is one of the reasons why he is starting over Andrew Maxwell. Number one, he led the game-winning drive against TCU in the Buffalo Wild Wings bowl game last season. Number two, he's more mobile. Not Michael Vick, but he's more mobile than Maxwell. And number three, I believe he's got a stronger arm. He made some exceptional throws yesterday. One really annoyed me is that Keith Mumphrey, number 25, a wide receiver who's kind of fallen back into the mix in regards to Michigan State targets. He was a guy who caught 42 passes last year, only 7 this year, and he's really not getting into the flow. Some other guys have passed him by. There was a great throw that Connor Cook made in this game. This was an NFL Manning, Brady kind of throw, an out route, very deep, and he gunned it. And it wasn't so much that Mumphrey dropped it. He didn't get his hands on it. Right through the hands. Mumphrey, no catches on the day, only 7. Again, for the junior this season from Georgia. He had 42 last season. Connor Cook coming into this game against Iowa was brash enough to say, hey, had I been in the game on that final drive against Notre Dame, we would have won that football game. And if you watched that game, that was certainly an even match between the Irish and the Spartans. Michigan State with 6 pass interference penalties, some of them very questionable in that loss to Notre Dame. Michigan State had a 4th and 1. Mark D'Antonio, great coach, exceptional coach, especially for this program. He's a great fit. Made some questionable decisions. What would be a low-scoring game, went for it on 4th and 1 when he should have been kicking a field goal. His defense was dominant in the first 15 to 20 minutes of play throughout the first quarter, certainly, and into the second quarter. They missed a field goal. The wind knocked it down and to the side. They ran a 3rd and 6 prior to the missed field goal with Connor Cook. Again, not exactly Michael Vick, running a read option, and he was stuffed. Didn't think that was the right play call there. Michigan State coming into the game had absolutely no plays of plus 40 yards. Think about that. Through 5 games, no plays of over 40 yards. They were the only team in FBS football, the only team out of 125 to have no plays over 40 yards, but they finally hit one in this game. Kings Jr. caught 5 for 94, including a 46-yard touchdown pass from Connor Cook. Also wanted to mention that Michigan State certainly, what I liked about the game plan is that they stayed with their base. They stayed with the running game and the play-action pass, so they didn't lose their identity or what they would like to be their identity at Michigan State. Run the football, run it down your throats, play action pass off of it, but they still got creative. You saw some bootlegs, you saw some end arounds, you saw them try to open it up and make the defense have to second guess some things. They ran a fake punt with Mike Sadler. They ran out of the Wildcat with Langford, pitching to Cook and throwing out of that formation. The freshman Michael Geiger, good sign for Michigan State, hit a career-high 49-yard field goal after missing the chip shot earlier. The Spartans, with the defense and with the limited offensive arsenal, could certainly be playing some close games as they did last season. D'Antonio, again, we have harped on the wide receivers and the Michigan State lack of a passing game this entire offseason and into this season as they continue to struggle. But in this game, we finally saw a spark out of this team. Connor Cook found 9 different receivers in this game. D'Antonio had said prior to the Iowa game during his news conference that he basically has 6 starting wide receivers, which, again, like having 2 starting quarterbacks isn't necessarily a good thing. Cook hit on 25 of 44, few drops in there, but not as many as in the past. 277 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick. The Michigan State defense basically had a letdown in the second quarter. They were up early in the football game, gave up a couple touchdowns, went down 14-10 as Jake Rudock hit on 11 consecutive passes, 2 touchdowns, 138 yards. He looked miserable for the first quarter. Much of that had to do with the Michigan State defense, which came in number 1 ranked in the country, but a lot of it just horrible throws, horrible decisions, but more just bad throws. And then all of a sudden, he got some play calls that worked in his favor. His wide receivers helped him out with some nice moves in space, and he hit on 11 consecutive passes. Looked like a completely different quarterback. Then when Michigan State's defense again took control of the game, he missed on some passes, but he looked to be pretty efficient in this game. Rudock, not going to be a great quarterback, but certainly coming along. The Michigan State defense, for an Iowa team that obviously with Mark Weisman loves to run the football, he only had 7 carries for 9 yards. That's coming off a 147-yard effort against Minnesota. Iowa rushing attack had averaged 244 yards coming into the football game, and Michigan State held the Hawkeyes down to 23 yards rushing on 16 carries, 16 for 23. Bennie Fowler emerged as a target in this game, 9 catches for 92 yards. So Michigan State finds a bit of a passing game. It wasn't electric. It wasn't the greatest show on turf, but it was certainly a great improvement against a quality defense. Not a great defense, but probably the 4th or 5th best defense in this conference. So Michigan State found something in the passing game with Connor Cook doing some different things and showing off his arm and getting the ball downfield, something D'Antonio has said the entire offseason and into the season that they need chunk plays, and they finally got them in the passing game. And this team will be a factor in this division. The spotlight's on Michigan, to a lesser extent Northwestern, and certainly Nebraska as well. Michigan State, don't forget about the Spartans. They've got Indiana coming up. The Hawkeyes with 1 loss, but still showing us something to a certain extent. They will be a tough foe for anybody they meet down the road. Play their next game after a bye week against the Ohio State Buckeyes. Okay, Michigan State fans, Iowa fans, college football fans, chime in on Michigan State and Iowa. An under-the-radar game on Saturday, but certainly extremely important to this division race as Michigan State gets the first significant win. And now they've got a bit of a cushion going into November. Then they hit it hard against Michigan, against Nebraska, and against Northwestern. Need to hear from you now on Mark Rogers TV and ProFootballCentral.com.